Hi, Facebook friends. Helen Archontou here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. So happy to have some time with you this Monday morning. Sorry, we're a little late. We're a little late because actually Christine and I, Dr. Thorpe, I should say, and I got on the call on the this platform to get ready to talk, and we immediately started talking about the events of the last few days, and our conversation went on a little longer than we expected and probably could go on for days. But it was important, I think, for the two of us to have that time to talk. And, just want to start out by, sharing my um, just condolences to the families of the Floyd family, and just also my absolute again, I'm a white woman. We were just having this conversation. I watch what's going on, but I haven't had this life experience. I stand to, as a woman, as an individual, not even as part of this organization, as to be an agent of support and change, to use my white privilege accordingly. Obviously, the YWCA of Northern New Jersey, our mission is to eliminate racism. These are the moments that we need to live our mission, more so than, although we do it every day. And we've been talking with individuals in our community, Black leaders, and have some more conversations to have this week to figure out, some concrete things that we can be doing, and be part of healing and moving forward. The reality of it is every person in our society needs to be able to be safe, and feel that they can comfortably exist. And systemic racism needs to be dismantled. And that's what these conversations, need to be about: how to eliminate racism and how to crush systemic racism. And so, with that, kind of an unplanned start today, but obviously needed to be said. And I don't know, Christine, if you, I know we're here today because obviously it's May was Mental Health Month, but Dr. Thorpe, for those of you that don't know her, she is a YWCA board member. She's been a longtime friend. She's a women's health expert. She's been our keynote speaker at our women's conference. And, she recently has published Living Beyond the Facade: Inside the Health and Wealth Practices of Americans of African Descent. And I can't imagine how, this conversation isn't more poignant for today. Sure. But we had planned to have this conversation, before, the events of the last few days and the last weeks or so. But again, she is here to share a little bit about her book and some tips in health, and obviously we'll talk a little more. And she and her husband also recently launched a podcast called Beyond the Facade. And the mission of that is to strengthen our health, build our wealth, and cultivate intergenerational legacy throughout the power of community. We're so grateful to have Dr. Thorpe with us on YWTV, this platform that we've created to keep us connected during this time, and to make sure that we are being fed with important information and inspiration. And I believe today will be both. So welcome, Dr. Thorpe.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much for having me on. I love the YW for years, and I appreciate your words as you start the show today. We have to become more comfortable with difficult and uncomfortable conversations. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to actually go through it too. So I definitely appreciate your voice and your position in being able to challenge those conversations. And in other settings where I've heard you speak, you continue to do that. So I champion you and applaud you for your position and your efforts and your stance as the head of the YW, and as someone who is a true voice that people listen to, in addition to all the other voices that are being said. But we all need to speak, and we all need to really examine what's been happening and not continue with business as usual. And yes, having the opportunity to talk about self-care and health and boundaries is important because we have been so inundated the last 3 months. If it wasn't for the beginning, of course, with 2.5 months prior to this of COVID conversations all day, every day, and now to springboard into this tragedy that's happened in our society yet again, that one can only imagine what you're feeling at the end of every day before you go to bed, whether it's dealing with health issues and dealing with the mental health trauma, watching this image over and over again and being able to have this conversation about self-care is for us to remember that we need to replenish as we continue on this fight and this journey every single day.
Amen.
Yeah.
And, and with that, we know that, mental health issues lead to physical health issues. Physical health issues lead to mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
It's all connected for sure. And, important conversations. So, with that, I know that, our conversation was to talk a little bit and, it's hard for me to even ask these questions in light of the last few days, honestly.
But if I can just jump in, we do need it. So, how we need to do self-care at this time is still very real. We can't neglect it regardless of what's happening around us. And as I was saying before, when we're not replenished, we are not able to join in on the fight. We're not able to do the work that needs to be done. So,
so this is important. This is important because, as you said, we all have to raise our voices for sure. So with that, and I think this, very much, does happen, especially for social justice activists. I would say for sure is that, we get so passionate, and watching all of the Black leaders that I've watched for the last few days, everyone is so passionate, obviously, about what they're doing and saying and living their truth. But it's difficult sometimes to set some boundaries to be able to take care of yourself and to take care of your own mental health and your own physical health.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about how we can do that, especially, at a time like this when we want to, we want to be part of a solution, be part of a movement to move things to a better place. And yet, we have other things happening that we need to take care of too.
Well, we recognize burnout is real, whether or not you're a professional on the front lines or you're sitting on your couch watching TV or working from home. And what's really important is to, acknowledge the boundaries that you need to set. We can't help but watch TV, but must we watch the same news footage that's being shown for 6 hours straight? How many news reports how many times per day can we limit when we're looking at the news and know that they show footage for hours of what's happening, whether it's regarding riots and protests to footage and information about COVID? There should be some set times during the day when we allow ourselves those moments to see those things on television and social media, and we need to pull back. Also, many of us work from home with children, and they need us. And we also are working, and our employers may say, I need you to be in a meeting. At the same time, you may need to, for those who have younger children, help them to practice their vowel sounds, or just help them with a project. And I've had conversations with other women through the Beyond the Facade series and saying that we need to have an acknowledgement that our life is a little different now. If we're working from home, we're connected to our family members, and we need to give grace in that space and an understanding of the reality that people are living in. So it may mean having that direct conversation with your boss and saying, I am working from home, but I am also a parent. How can we work together so that I can deliver what you're expecting of me, but I'm also able to parent my child? And, with every child, there are different age ranges. Mine are adolescents. Mine are a little bit older. For those who have younger ones, it's hard to have a meeting and not have somebody climb up on your lap halfway through. And And that's fine. That's fine. I've been able to say, just give me a minute, and mine are a little bit older where they can stay back. But there have been times where they just want to come, and one of my younger one wants to come and sit. It's not a crime. It's not a problem. And I think having that conversation that you're connected to a family, it's real. Also for ourselves, some people think self-care is just bath time and all kinds of, fluffy. It can simply mean, especially since we're on our computers all day, every day, blocking that time to walk away from the computer. You don't have to sit at your computer to eat your lunch. You can walk into your kitchen and separate yourself from that, creating a space that's your workspace, that's separate from your sleeping space, that's separate from your family socializing space, if possible. But either way, making sure that you take control of that time and set those boundaries.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm so glad that you shared that, and it's so important. I have to say for, myself, and here I've been doing these YWTV episodes for the last 2-3 months, and we've had, plenty of conversations with people about self-care, but I've been in this loop of attached to my computer and Zoom meetings and the Facebook Lives, and just 2 weeks ago, just for my own mental health, because of my own stress that I was feeling, I started once a day moving a Zoom to a phone call and going outside of my house and walking while I do that phone call, for the length of that phone call, taking a walk around my block. And it was a little thing, but I have to say it has made a very big difference, for me in terms of not feeling as stressed at the end of the day. Exactly. So I do encourage people to listen to what Dr. Thorpe is saying, because, it may seem like a small thing, but it just can sometimes interrupt the stress long enough to be able to, and, I see our friend Sandra is on watching and said how she loved the concept of replenish, but, it is true that moment does fill you back up and help you, keep going and make you stronger.
It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just the art of self-compassion. Something small can be something big, and it's okay. It doesn't have to be just right. And we need to cut ourselves some slack. Many of us who are working from home have probably worked more working from home than we worked in the office. I can definitely attest to having meetings so closely back to back in a way in the very beginning where I said, no, we need to structure this differently. I need some breathing room in between, because by the end of the day, I didn't talk. Yeah. I didn't want to talk. It was a nod or, a shake of the head, because I had given away my voice all day and I did not get to pull that back. So we need to cut ourselves some slack. We are doing our very best, and we don't want to end up being even more drained from this situation than we need to be. So we need to show ourselves some more self-compassion in the smallest, simplest ways that we can do. So walks are great.
Yeah, what are some techniques that you would recommend for our for those watching? And specifically, I know that you and I want to talk about the podcast too, but I know that you're the title of the book obviously is like you're towards American of African descent. Can you speak a little bit about your intent of writing the book directly?
Oh, sure.
Too, I think that's important to talk about right now as well.
Okay, so
sorry, I sprung that one on you.
I didn't know. It's okay. I heard your first question, and my mind is switching to the next question. Yes. So I wrote the book at a time we were going through, of course, the previous presidential election, and it was just a very, very combative period in terms of the rhetoric that was being shared about communities. And when you have someone saying that, certain particular communities are all living in hell, what do you have to lose? You hear language like that and you're thinking, we must be able to shape our own story. We must be able to share what we are doing and doing well. And we have the capacity to harness that information to teach each other and to learn from each other. So I interviewed 60 people for my book to talk about their health practices, their wealth practices, how they learn what they learn, what experiences they had growing up that impacted them today, and continue to impact the decisions that they make about their health and wealth, not just for them, but for future generations, and all the lessons that they learn. And people were quite generous in sharing their story, and their stories, were so touching because they ranged from, I grew up seeing family members who were sick from chronic illnesses, and I knew I didn't want to be in that state, so I take good care of my health. Or I remember growing poor, and I did not want to be in that state. So while the book focuses on Americans of African descent, I think people can relate to the stories for their own personal experience. And it's just specifically geared to this audience simply because more of the language often is, you're disproportionately ill and you're going to be broke by 2053, and it's almost doom and gloom, as opposed to providing true language and options and an opportunity to learn how to make those changes, so 2053 doesn't hit us and blindside us, or we're not fixated on 225 years to catch up, which this concept of catching up just sounds really off to me when you're running two different races.
Right.
So it was more to empower for people to catch stories that related to them and use their stories and their words of wisdom as inspiration to build for their future.
Yeah, well, I think it's a very important, and obviously also, how we started this conversation as well. I mean, the stress, the pressure that Black people and people of color live with does deteriorate you in a way that someone like myself can't understand. And it's important to have voices like yours that are sharing, concrete techniques and practices, to be able to help bring, everyone to a base.
Well, there were, a couple of things that came out of this that I'm going to speak to as well as approaches. And it was consciousness, being conscious, being mindful, being able to execute your plan, and being disciplined. And those were 4 areas that the people shared through the interviews that were really consistent. They were aware. They developed an understanding and awareness by way of looking around them and learning and being open to seeing what could be and what was and how they would like for things to be. And then making mindful choices and saying, I'm not just going to let things happen that just because I need to be mindful. How do I get the resources and the support to do so? I'm not alone in this, and even during this time, being conscious and mindful is just taking some time to take a breath and breathe. And first come from a place of gratitude of what you've been blessed with, and understand from that space, where can we go on to build and make plans for what you want going forward? How do you envision your life to be based on where you are now, and where can you grow? Is there a mental mantra that you can, derive and channel every time you find yourself falling into a negative mindset and a negative pit that will take you away from the goals that you want to seek? And being able to control your mind is really important, because a lot of times we end up on this mental loop. And where do we go at the end of that mental loop? We're spent. There's nothing gained from that. Whereas you take a minute, and I'll never forget in grad school, my advisor in grad school, she had us all repeat, you're calm, centered, and balanced. And it was the joke for years, because when you saw her, that was all she would say to you is, you're calm, centered, and balanced. But it was years ago, that was my introduction to that consistent mental mantra, and others that I've been drawn to help me get to a place of stability when things seem chaotic around me, so that I can be clear in my thoughts, clear and deliberate in my actions, and execute plans that I want to help me move forward in taking care of myself as well as my family and those around me, and being a productive member in society.
Yeah. Well, so I'm curious and love that you and your husband have started this podcast together and kind of melded your worlds. I happen to know a little bit about, him and his world as well, and your world. And, for years I've been listening to, and she was actually a YW Gala honoree, Tiffany the Budgetnista, talk about,
Yes.
saving money, which I love her and I love her messages.
Hmm.
But I love that you and your husband are doing this together for a lot of reasons. I love as a couple, as a relationship that you've
Thank
embarked on
you.
together. I think that that's so powerful for your children, so powerful for other
Yeah.
couples to see the way that you're taking this on together. But it's also this messaging of mental health and managing
Hmm.
together, which I think is so powerful. So can you talk a little bit about that? I just love for our viewers to hear
Yeah.
the journey.
So, yeah, my husband, financial advisor, and we talked. I'm the health person and he's a finance person. And our conversations began to run parallel because we through writing this book and talking with all of these people, how these two areas go hand in hand, and how we knew as a couple, the things that we had to learn, because we have children now, and we didn't come into this marriage knowing everything.
Mm,
We've picked lessons up here and there, but it's through our life experiences and listening to other folks that we learned and grew, and been able to now share things with our children and expose them to, of course, healthy living mentally and physically, and many other aspects, financial wellness, helping them to understand the value of money. And even as adolescents, it's like, okay, so let's
mhm,
break this down and have a real conversation. But it's nice to be part of a team with a
mhm.
husband who can share in these conversations and be able to come together. And we do this through the Beyond the Facade um, series that we're doing, where we're bringing people on to have conversations, building out from the book, and talk about what does it mean to build financial wealth. What does the legacy look like?
Mhm, mhm.
How do you prepare for the next generation? And what has stopped us in doing so today? And how do we separate our wants and our needs? And how can we be more intentional about our choices? Where do we need to invest in ourselves and our families? And we have those conversations together, and we enjoy sharing that together within our family, but as well through this series.
Yeah. Well, I see a couple's workbook ahead as a next journal, and I see a children's a component for parenting for children. So you
Well,
two get
let's
on them.
speak it into reality. I love
Yes,
it. I
yes,
love it.
yes. I know I would buy them, and I'd always buy and come listen to you anytime, buy anything you put out, and I'm a fan. I'm grateful for what you bring into our community. And I think that your graduate school teacher did well, because you do exude that calmness and strength simultaneously, which I always really
Thank
respect
you.
and appreciate about you. And I didn't say to everyone earlier, just so everyone knows, that, I don't think I said this. I went right into your book, but Dr. Thorpe is a certified wellness coach, health and education specialist,
That too, right?
and a dean at Nathan Weiss Graduate College at Kean University. So,
Yeah.
but and a mom and a wife and a daughter and all this, and a friend and
And
all
a
those,
friend,
and
all that stuff
all
in
those
between.
things. Yes,
Yeah.
all those things. And so, is any last thoughts to share
Hmm.
with us as we think to sign off today?
While we're at home, I really encourage people to invest in themselves, really take stock and look at their lives and what's happening in the world around it. This is an opportunity for change to happen internally, individually, within your home, so that we can make change in our communities, whether it's through mental and physical health, financial wellness, spiritually, environmentally. Where can you see yourself making an impact, where you're transformed and you're transforming your home and transforming the world around you? We each have a stock to play in this world, and we need to actually take a step and do that. We have a calling that we all need to honor, and I think that this is a prime time for us to be engaged and be active within ourselves as well as the world around us.
Well, thank you, Dr. Thorpe, and we look forward to having more conversations with you in the future. And that everyone, again, I appreciate your patience, as Christine and I were having our own little debrief before we jumped on with all of you. So thank you for those of you that stayed with us and waited for us to get ourselves into a space, because we needed that time together as we all do right now to make that space for each other. So let me also share, if there's someone in your life that you wished had seen this episode of YWTV and heard this conversation, it's available to them on YWTV on our Facebook page. You can share it with them. They can come back and watch it, and from there, it will be on our YouTube channel. So with that, I also would like to say that this week we hope you can join us for some of our other episodes. Two of them I can share with you right now. Tomorrow, we will have Arlene Carini of Nouvelle and One Savvy Design, two shops that are in Montclair, and Lauren Turk, who is the owner of The Hangout, that's in Englewood. And they're both going to talk to us a little bit about, as women business owners of retail stores, how they stayed connected to their customers during COVID-19. And we'll talk with them a little bit about preparing to open their doors to the community again as we start to hear, more about that happening. Also on Friday, we have Dr. Patty O'Brien Richardson, who's going to talk to us a little bit about boosting our immunity and incorporating faith, food, and fitness into our lives. We are so grateful that we have this time with you each day that we are able to be with you. I want to thank everybody watching. I'm watching all of our friends, YW friends, personal friends that have shared, their thoughts and bravos to us as we've been talking. This is an important time, as Dr. Thorpe said, to share your voice, and grateful that she was able to do that with us here today. And everyone stay well. It's Monday. Enjoy the day wherever you are. Hopefully you're safe and well, and try to take a little bit of Dr. Thorpe's advice and carve out a little bit of time for you each day.
Thank you so much, Helen.
Oh, and also follow her social media. We'll post this information about her book here, so you can stay connected to her as well, and the podcasts and all of that jazz too, so you can stay connected. I want to make sure I say that. All right.
Thank
Take care all.
you.
Well, have a great day, everyone.